that I think is a real opportunity for us to maybe help champion that as a commission to bring those inter-metro departments together such that we can do some, Cumberland River Compact credits within this county. So I would love for that conversation to start with this case and this be the catalyst for that. Is there a way to document that?
I remember us talking about the need of that. Would you like a reference made in the minutes that we discussed the need for that?
Yep, because we reference Cumberland River Compact here and them identifying, or Logan identifying the issue of how is it written? About available mitigation banks in respective watersheds within Davidson County. Her statement was there are none. That's false. I think Metro Properties and Parks has several opportunities that we need to work through together to get this done.
So if you'd be willing to make a motion to add language to the minutes that reflects what we actually said in the last meeting in that regard, that would be great.
Sure. So the motion would be it's still to approve the variance requests, and the comment I would make in that motion is that there would need to be I would encourage the Cumberland River Compact, Metro Water Services, and Metro Parks to work together to develop mitigation strategies to provide opportunity for the compensatory mitigation strategy to be performed within Davidson County on Metro properties.
I remember him saying something to that effect in the last meeting. So we have a motion that reflects a conversation that was initiated by Kabir to encourage Metro and the associated nonprofits engaged in mitigation banking in Davidson County to start the process of looking for mitigation banking sites, and for the committee to take a role in helping to move that along. So does everybody understand the motion that way? Okay, so Logan just wrote down the words to the motion. So we have a motion's been made. Is there a second?
Just in the minutes, right? Not in the decision letter? You wanted this in the minutes? Okay.
Whichever's most effective to getting this done.
Okay. We can consider, I don't know about the decision letter. Michael and I can talk about it.
Did he ask that it be put in the decision letter?
He said minutes.
Yeah, just whichever's effective. Yes, question. So whichever's most effective to actually have something, have a meeting set up.
It's not binding, so I wouldn't put it in the decision letter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Being outside of the past discussion, it might be better.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. The minutes of this meeting or the minutes of last month's meeting?
Chiming in a little bit here, it's okay to add it to the minutes of last month's meeting if that's what you said.
Exactly.
If there's something else that you want to add this month, maybe we put it under other business and we discuss, you could make a motion at that point to be clearer in what you're expecting from staff. Does that make sense?
And I said it in last meeting as well.
Okay. So then, Logan, you could paraphrase and put it in the minutes.
Motion this meeting.
Yeah, we can do both if you like.
Sure,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Okay. All right.
So still, you would need a motion to revise the minutes to reflect what you said in the previous meeting. And then later, we can take it under other business and we can make sure that we 100% understand what you're asking from us going forward.
Okay. All right. So was that your motion?
That was, well, that was my motion for this meeting, and then the amendment is basically, I want to add the verbiage that I had stated in the last meeting to this meeting minutes.
Okay. So would you mind tabling your motion for this meeting until we get to the additional business, since we're kind of following the agenda? And then if you could restate your motion to have the minutes reflect your comments in that regard from the last meeting.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. All right. So would you mind restating that?
For this,
For the minutes.
For the minutes, so Logan, I'd like to make an amendment. So I need to make a motion for that amendment. So I'd like to make it a motion to amend the, this is the airport case 2021 quadruple 06 BNA ramp A concourse There is a statement in here on the fourth line down where Ms. Michaela Houghton spoke about available mitigation banks in respective watersheds within Davidson County. The next sentence to that is, I had inquired if there were any available mitigation banks available in Davidson County. She said there were none. A representative from Greenways was present, Cindy Harrison, and the discussion was potential collaboration between Metro Water Services and Metro Parks on performing mitigation within stream banks on Metro Parks or Metro properties.
Okay. So the previous motion was withdrawn. This motion focuses specifically on having the minutes reflect the previous discussion in regard to that specific case. All right.
Yeah.
Everybody understand the motion? All right. Everybody understand the previous motion was withdrawn? Okay. Do we have a second on the last motion?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a proper second. Any discussion? Seeing none, everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Motion passes. All right. So that was a motion to edit the minutes for that particular discussion in the last meeting. So now, are we ready for a motion to approve the minutes and decision letters as one motion, preferably? All right, we have a motion to approve the previous minutes and decision letters with the amendment to amend the minutes only in regard to Mr. Kabir's comments in the last meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes and decision letters and the minutes as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes. All right. So that takes care of our normal sort of administrative task of making all of our decisions last month official. And now we need to move on to our cases. Our first case is 1400 Gould Boulevard. I understand we have a request from the applicant.
The applicant would like another 30-day deferral for that one.
We have a motion. All right, we have a motion to defer. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to defer, and it's been properly seconded. Any discussion? Any questions about why it's being deferred? Okay, applicant request. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstentions, motion passes. All right, our second case is 7433 Sawyer Brown Road. We again heard this case previously. They've been deferred, I think at least once, maybe twice. I understand that the applicant has made another request.
Yeah, the applicant would like to be heard at the July meeting, so 30-day deferral again.
So we have a request from the applicant that this be deferred to July.
I'll make a motion to accept that deference.
All right, so we have a motion to defer. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion that's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer to July? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right. So we are ready for our third case on the agenda, and that is 135 Kingston Street, represented by Mr. Michael Garrigan, and he'll introduce his other associate here in a minute. We're going to have Mr. Bowman introduce the case formally, read you your rights of appeal. We'll ask you to present in 10 minutes or less your proposal. We'll open up the public hearing. We'll close public hearing, then we'll start committee discussion and debate.
If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Stormwater Management Committee, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the committee's decision. You are advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied. Case number 3 on the agenda is case 2023-00004, 135 Kingston Street at 135 Kingston Street. APN is 07130-11500. Inspector Catherine O'Hara, Council District 5, Sean Parker. Applicant's request: disturbance of the Zone 1 and Zone 2 floodway buffer, continuous mowing and maintenance of portions of the floodway buffer, modified buffer signage is necessary. Appellant is Raymond and Mary Uford, represented by Michael Garrigan, Dell & Associates. Comments: Stormwater staff. The applicant has increased the Zone 1 buffer plantings. Staff requests that if the plan is approved, the landscape plan is revised so that no one tree species constitutes more than 20% of the total. Codes, no comment provided. Planning had no comment provided. Greenways. Greenways request that the property owner work with Greenways and Open Space Division staff to dedicate a conservation greenway easement over the floodway of Pages Branch plus 25 on both sides of the floodway on this parcel.
Okay, Mr. Garrigan, if you'll introduce everybody with you here today, including anybody in the audience that you might just want us to be aware of. And I'll start your clock when you have finished your introductions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael Garrigan, 516 Heather Place. I'm an engineer with Dell & Associates. To my left is Alex Kroll. He will be the home builder for this project. If you will recall, last month we were deferred with a request for a hydraulic determination, which I wasn't aware of, but we actually had from last November. And that was provided to staff, prepared by Lord and Winter. The secondary indicator score was 15, which is 4 points below the cutoff at 19 for a stream. However, they felt based upon, the time of the year, the characteristics, probably the fact that it's a named and mapped waterway, they, even though it didn't meet the criteria, they called it a stream. So, borderline, we could say. And another concern was the mitigation. In addition to, the actual BMPs we were proposing, it was a little light on the last submittal. So we've come back with a much heavier mitigation plan. Obviously that includes cleaning out the mattresses and the tires and the rubble from the prior structure that burnt down. That's all within the buffer, and coming back with too many to count trees, native grasses and flowers. And we've decreased the request for mowing and maintenance from the complete, like a linear 25-foot strip in the Zone 1 down to just 15 feet next to the building. The rest will be those native grasses and just left to, grow and fill that buffer back to where it was at some point in time. And one other thing I wanted to point out that we did discuss last time was the house, the 2 vacant lots next door. We have spoken with the owners of 131 Kingston. They just completed a survey that they've sent us, and they're working with an architect. Their plan is to request a setback variance from BZA, which can't presume anything, but they will be asking for less relief than we were granted by the BZA, because they're not as encumbered by the buffer as we are, so that when they get if they get their setback variance, they won't be in the Zone 2 whatsoever. So there is some moving pieces, but there's some progress being made on the lot immediately to our west. Other than that, the plan is very similar on its face. There's the new landscape plan on the screen now. You can see it's much more robust than the prior plan. Just wanted to, once again point out that there was a 2-family structure on the lot. It was damaged by fire. When the renovation permit was requested, it was denied, and that structure was condemned and demolished by Metro. So they're just, trying to come back in. I think I may have stated 1,200 square feet, but it's closer to, it's under 1,000, correct? Of conditioned space. So this, absolutely 100% would be an affordable house to add back into the market for Metro. So With that, we're happy to answer any questions. And Alex, if you want to add anything.
Sure, yes, and thank you. Thank you very much. Alex Cross, 610 Basswood Avenue. I apologize for not being at this last meeting. I had a personal commitment that I could not get out of, but I did go back and rewatch the hearing about 4 times and wrote down some specific questions that each committee member had. So if I have the time, I'd like to mention some of those questions and some of the answers there. I think Chairperson Mr. Dodd said if it were developed on either side, I would support this. Mr. Garrigan just hit on that we just received an email and our neighbors next door have surveyed 2 lots further down. There are 2 new homes that are in permitting at 127 Kingston Street. And to the right, since this is kind of a corner edge of Kingston, to the right, the closest house on Sultana, it's at 2213 Sultana, is existing, and the entire house is in the Zone 1 buffer with parts possibly in the floodway. I know we can't go back in time and take that away because it was existing before some of these buffers were around, but I just wanted to point that out, that technically the houses to the right and to the left, the future house to the left, would be developed. Let's see. Ms. McDonald also asked if there was a way to get the buffer to a more natural state and enhance it. I believe that Mr. Garrigan's plan does take us to a more natural state and enhance it. As we said, we will clean up the site, which has been littered with the debris of the former demolition and also additional tires. I just drove by yesterday and 8 more new tires. No mattresses this time. But we would also absolutely support dedicating that conservation greenway easement. And we would also be in favor of abandoning, if you notice on the map, Sultana technically continues even though it's unimproved. And we would absolutely be in support of abandoning that unimproved section and dedicating that, as we see that as a perfect opportunity to access the stream and do any kind of mitigation. We would also be willing, there's another 10-foot unimproved alley at the rear, and we would like to at least have that conversation with the council person in abandoning that and dedicating that as any use of greenways or any use to enhance the stream in any way. I know it takes multiple owners and multiple neighbors or council person involvement, so we would be more than willing to get that going, or at least that conversation started. Dr. Janie Camp, who isn't here today, asked us to think about the sidewalk and what we can do there to reduce concrete. This lot does require sidewalks, but we've chosen for topographical reasons to pay into the sidewalk fund to not construct a sidewalk on this 100-foot stretch of lot. So I wanted to mention that we would also reduce our impervious footprint by not building any sidewalks there. And Mr. Jay Fulmer, who's also not here today, asked what the stream score was. As Mr. Garrigan pointed out, it scored extremely low at 15. Lord and Winter said there could be an argument made, but they just thought that the state would consider some of the geographical features and the fact that it is a named entity for it to be a stream. So they kind of wanted to err on the side of caution, even though they noted it did have a very low score. Some other notes that weren't pointed out at the first meeting, I just wanted to mention that no part of the building envelope is contained in the 100-year flood zone, and that base flood elevation is 476.1. The home that we're proposing will be approximately 8 feet above that at 484 feet, which is double the minimum if it were in the flood zone. It will also use the existing water and sewer taps that service the duplex that burned down. So there isn't going to be additional excavation for utilities that are already in place, and we're going to go overhead with the electric service. So we won't have to dig and disturb anything that could be in the zone 2. And yeah, I have this hydrologic determination if anyone wants to see it. I also have some additional notes from Ellen Strupp with Lord and Winter. If you guys have specific questions about that, please do let me know. Thank you.
All right. Is that it? Okay. You're under time. Appreciate it. Okay, so we'll open up the public hearing now for anyone who'd like to speak in favor or against the current proposal, variance proposal. Do we have anyone here who'd like to speak in favor or against the current variance proposal? All right, seeing none. Mr. Bowman, do we have any greeting cards, letters?
We did not have anything on this case.
Okay, all right, we don't have any additional communication. So seeing that we have no people present and no additional written or verbal communication, we'll close the public hearing and we'll open it up for a committee discussion. So, I see you got your mic.
Remind me of where you are with the BZA process. I'm sorry, you mentioned it.
The variance has been granted
It has.
for the side and the street setbacks.
Okay. So your plan as submitted previously is essentially the same related to the position of the house and the setbacks?
Yes,
from our last meeting? Okay. Okay.
So I guess my questions have to do with, is this house being developed by the previous owner who owned the previous house, or is this being developed for sale to a new owner?
It is being developed for sale to a new owner. The previous duplex was an income property for the owner, with both units being rented, I guess, in terms of affordable. Both units were 800 square feet before, so this will be a for sale development.
But that person is benefiting from the sale, or they're totally out of the picture?
I believe they're totally out of the picture. I'm actually our company is under contract to purchase the land from the former owner, and so we'll be the purchaser and also the builder.
So you have an option on the property now? You haven't bought it yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So, so we have an owner who was reimbursed for their fire and for their property, at least for the building structure. You have an option on the property to potentially purchase the property from the previous owner and then redevelop it for a new owner. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. The other question I had is regarding the greenway easement. Where would you grant the greenway easement given your mitigation proposal and the 15 feet of mowed area that you're requesting?
The 15, that's just 15 of the 50. So there's 35 left over that could be granted to greenways.
If Metro decided to put a greenway in there, they would remove more trees for the paved trail?
As far as our proposed plantings, we would work with them to strategically locate them if they had any, immediate plans, for sure. That's a good point.
Okay, but is it fair to say you would put the greenway within the 15-foot mowed area right beside the house, or you'd rather it be further away from the house?
Further away, yes, sir. We would relocate some of the plantings so that there was if they say they need 15-foot clear, there'd be that space.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Greenway request was the floodway plus 25 feet into the zone one, so.
So their mitigation might actually be lost if greenways decide to put a trail.
It looks like they tried to not plant it as densely there, maybe. Like the 25, I don't know exactly what the dimensions are here.
And Logan, to that, if I could mention, it might be better use to do a greenway on the other side of the stream, since it's basically, there's a 10-foot wide alley that's unimproved, that's, it starts on the other side of the stream anyways. And it looks like there's just one, maybe two other parcels that would be, we're absolutely willing to grant their request, but.
Okay, so so that takes care of a couple of my other questions. Regarding my comment about my support of the site, I was referring to existing development, not future development. I just want to clarify that with you. Okay. Regarding the low score, the fact that it's a named stream, it really doesn't surprise me that it was a named stream, because before this area developed intensely, the landscape was much more spongy, and there was much more vertical density of canopy probably, which slowed rainfall down, which allowed infiltration rates to occur, more progressively over time. And with extra sponginess in the watershed and with extra infiltration being timed over a longer period, a flatter curve, runoff curve, the stream would have been receiving water from groundwater that had previously been infiltrated in the ground. And that's probably why it was a named stream. So over time, as this area has developed, it's dried up, the watershed is dried up. So that's why it doesn't behave like a stream anymore. So the more impervious surface we put in the watershed and specifically in the buffer, the drier it's going to get. Just want to make sure y'all understood the context of that.
Yes, sir. And we do, as Mr. Garrigan pointed out, we are committed to removing, currently the site has still the foundation of the existing duplex that's there, and we'll, of course, remove that in its entirety.
Okay. Do you know if the owner's been approached by any nonprofits in Nashville to sell the property for conservation purposes?
Not to my knowledge, no. But to my knowledge, they have been approached with letters for dumping.
All right.
I just have one question. Is the actual footprint of the proposed house bigger or smaller than, it looks smaller than what was there?
Significantly smaller.
So am I understanding correctly then that the actual amount of impervious area from the buffer is actually decreasing in this proposed condition?
Yes, one second, please. The existing footprint of the foundation that's there is 1,301 square feet in the zone 1, and then an additional 157 square feet in the zone 2. So let's say 1,500 square feet total. What is proposed is 548 square feet only in the zone 2, 0 in the zone 1.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I do see that now on your plan.
So it's about a third.
Yeah. And I think the increased density of the plantings that y'all are proposing on this plan is certainly better than what we saw last time. And I'm inclined to support just because it is less, we're removing impervious from the buffer, right? So we're actually making it better than it was in the existing condition. It's being enhanced, so that's kind of where I'm at on this.
Yes, the impact would have been a lot greater if it was built back.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tough one because, it's rare that we get a chance to recapture buffer, particularly when the landowner's been compensated for their previous dwelling. They're not completely compensated for their fee simple ownership of the property, but they're not deprived of potential compensation in terms of a conservation purchase. The thing that concerns me is that you're still mowing the zone 1, which I can't think of a case where we've allowed that didn't involve some kind of public purpose, like a zoo or an airport or a wastewater treatment plant, zone 1 intrusion. Since those are more rare than housing development, we've tended to grant those. If the homeowner were here trying to rebuild and present, and we're going to own it, I would feel a lot better about supporting it. But since it's a development proposal that they've already been partially reimbursed for, that they could be further reimbursed for in the future through some kind of conservation acquisition, I just have a hard time supporting it. Also, 1,000 square foot dwelling in this part of Nashville is probably not going to be affordable to the type of buyer that we're trying to help with this type of dwelling. It's going to be a very highly priced per square foot dwelling. It'll probably be out of the range of someone who needs affordable housing. It'll probably be more appropriate for someone of means who's looking for a smaller home. So I'm not sure it adds really a public purpose for the affordable housing concept, since the per square foot price will probably be pretty high.
Well, the Metro defines affordable housing as the average median income. It's not low income housing.
That's a government definition you're citing there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I will reference that there are a few, technically condos that are in the 800 to 900 square foot range that are for sale a couple of streets away in the, I would say, like 319, 309 range for that size.
Yep.
Is that the AMI?
Yeah, I'm just one vote. My main concern is if we approve this, we're going to get more and more pressure to encroach on Zone 1 buffers in the future through creative BZA compromises that still mow the Zone 1. If it were the original landowner trying to put something back, we've fairly routinely gone with that flow. But they've been compensated partially. They could be further compensated. I individually just don't feel good about voting for it myself. But that doesn't mean it won't pass. We're a majority vote group, so.
Yeah, I think I would echo your comments, Mr. Chair. The previous, I guess, the precedent that we've set thus far for cases such as this have been either for nonprofit-based, community benefit, public use type of projects. If it was the original owner trying to redevelop their burnt-down home, I could see that as being a significant hardship. But since they've been compensated for that event, and this is now a sale for a private development that does not have any tie to a nonprofit or any sort of affordable housing initiative, I do share your sentiment there. This is a precedence issue and not necessarily a case issue.
Would it help for the precedent issue if we remove the mowing and maintenance of Zone 1? At that point, there's zero Zone 1 impact other than the mitigation.
Probably not, because the Greenway is probably going to get it anyway. Without the house there, the Greenway could move into the Zone 2 instead of the Zone 1. And then we've still got this issue of precedents. We have denied cases where the Zone 2 was being mostly developed, even when they were avoiding the Zone 1. I think you've had cases here before like that, Michael, specifically. And we've also denied low-income nonprofit development housing that occupied most of the Zone 2 and Zone 1. It's usually like a minor incursion or a situation where it's a ditch instead of a stream. I mean, it's just like a trapezoidal water conveyance. That's my challenge with it, is that you're occupying all of the Zone 2. And it's just and we got properties on either side that are not developed. It's a good opportunity for the landowner to be reimbursed in a different way and recapture buffer that shouldn't have been developed in the first place. That's just going to make the stream even drier. But that's just my individual view. But I appreciate the offer.
If I can, I just want to reorient us to, aside from the precedent, I mean, the reason why you're looking at this case individually and you're looking at it from a hardship determination, right? So don't lose sight of that. You have to go through the factors. Is there an extreme hardship that's different from this property than the surrounding properties? So understand the statement that's been made by the chair, but we're looking at this piece of property individually, and we're looking at those factors that we typically consider. And so when you're making a motion, taking that aside, what are those, is there an extreme hardship? Go through your factors, and from there you make your determination.
I agree with that completely. Our previous council would often say as well, this is a consistent kind of precedent setting kind of legal guidance, that precedents are really only valuable in terms of kind of public awareness and investor-backed expectations, but we're primarily held to hardship, the type of hardship that they would qualify would be a hydrogeomorphic anomaly, which this site is not a hydrogeomorphic anomaly. So I don't think they have a hardship either. But so I think we'd have a hard time approving it without a hardship and without mitigation that would stay stable. I'm concerned the mitigation won't stay stable. I've seen situations, I know of a situation near my house right now where someone built right up against the zone 1, or excuse me, right up against the zone 2, and now they're mowing the zone 2, and which they can do, but it's a very narrow zone 2 and zone 1. And over time, these things don't get enforced. If you don't have somebody there developing it, you don't have to worry about enforcing it. So
Does the stormwater manual define hardship at all?
The state appeals court does.
It talks about hardship, but there's a specific case on point, Precision Homes versus Metro Government, that really parses it out and explains specifically what that hardship would be. And just for the record, if you'd like me to, it would be a hardship that would result from failure to grant a requested variance, must be exceptional, unusual, and specific to the property involved, not the personal circumstances of the applicant. And when determining whether an applicant has established an exceptional hardship sufficient to justify a variance, the local variance appeal board or other governing body, which would be this body, must weigh the applicant's hardship against the community-wide flood damage prevention requirements. So an exceptional hardship is not just, I'm one of the properties in Nashville that has most of my properties in zone 2 or most of my properties in zone 1. And so the court is very specific there that it has to be something particular about your property other than, all those properties along that same strip is going to run into the same issues that you're coming before us for.
So if all the properties around us had buffer on them, but had less buffer, would that make this one I guess it's just kind of you see what I'm saying? Like if everybody else is encumbered by 70% floodway and floodway buffer, and we're 95% floodway and floodway buffer, which is probably pretty close, would that be considered exceptional? But I guess that's a judge question.
Well, right. And so, and the committee is well versed on these rules. And so what they have to do is they have to take the facts of your case and they have to take the facts of the circumstances surrounding your property that you're bringing forward. And they have to apply that to what we have as far as the rules. And that's how you get it.
Yeah, to answer your question, just from my perspective, if you were the only lot in Davidson County that had that condition, we could call it hardship. But it appears that the state appeals court decision is more focused on issues that the ordinance could not have envisioned being an encumbrance on a piece of property and therefore creating an unfair situation for a particular property owner.
And just to mirror what Mr. Garrigan said, this is the only lot on that side of the block face that would be considered unbuildable without a buffer variance. There are 2 existing houses and 3 that we know that are proposed, 2 of which have permits. And Mr. J. Fulmer pointed out that if this was not a fire and it was a tornado or a different type of disaster, that, Metro would let them rebuild the duplex in the zone 1 buffer. So I think that was the biggest hardship, and the fact that the BZA granted the side and the front and side setback variance, and there weren't any, objections from neighbors, was an indication that they perceived it to be buildable and wanted it to be buildable. So I'd say that the hardship was the fire and the fact that when they tried to build back, Metro condemned the building to the point where they forced demolition.
Yeah, like I said, if it were the original owner, I don't think we'd have a problem doing it. Okay, any other discussion?
If this is not granted and the house is not constructed, the property then either remains as is. Yeah. And is maintained or not maintained. And continues to be potential dumping site.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, and talking with neighbors around, and I frequent there's a coffee shop called Crema that's on the corner there. I've talked to several of them. They are all familiar with this site and the lot next door, and they're like, anything you can do to prevent that. So there has been a little bit of neighborhood discussion, nothing on the record, but.
Michael, do you have any street photographs of the site that we can look at? Give us a little context. I've been trying my best to avoid testing your technology skills since you're a temp employee today over there. We went straight to the booking agency to get the best temp they had.
One thing I did want to mention as far as the dumping, it would be the property owner's responsibility to meet codes as far as sanitation. I think you referenced some letters, so code sanitation does address certain issues like that.
Okay, there we go. That's the previous house?
That's the previous, yes, sir, that's the previous duplex that existed. I was told that the fire was in late 2021 and the demolition took place spring and summer of 2022.
That's a pretty tight area.
So did the previous house, maybe I'm just disoriented, front on Sultania Avenue?
No, it's actually Google Maps it's wrong. That's Kingston. So you come down Sultania and then you make almost a 90-degree curve,
Okay.
and that's where Kingston starts, and the unimproved section of Sultana, I guess.
Got it. Okay, yep.
So the fence is still in existence, but part of the fence.
So you're moving the proposed house up and smaller.
Correct. As far to the left, it would be kind of angled about between the mailbox and the tree. That's basically the envelope would be the front of the middle of the trailer. And that last picture.
That's a pretty healthy looking buffer, guys. It's got some big, tall canopy trees. A lot of diversity. Okay.
All of the existing trees in the lot are to remain. I see the one at the property line behind the Forerunner that's close to the building footprint.
That is correct. That one may have to have a few limbs trimmed. That's actually not on, the lot actually starts immediately on the other side of, I guess it would be the rear passenger tire, like at that concrete. It's pretty, the lot does not go according to the fence. As we had it surveyed, and the entirety of that tree is on the 131 Kingston Street parcel. So I could only imagine maybe the lowest limb would need, and that's because we're elevating it's going to be a 2-story home, even though it'll still be 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom.
That's a shame. Where I grew up, passenger tires are considered landscaping. We actually bury them half in the ground, make edging out of them.
Yes, and you see where the Harvest Moon Coffee Roast, that's an existing dwelling that's in the floodway there.
Also, point out that that structure in the street view was the back corner on the right side is essentially touching the floodway. So a lot of those trees are not in the buffer. They're in the floodway itself.
Mm-hmm.
Which you won't.
Yeah, and they, of course, would remain.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the buffer is essentially the house or the structure you're looking at in that picture.
So the owner could have, or correct me if I'm wrong, if it was a fire, the owner could have built the home on its existing location? Is that correct?
If Metro hadn't have condemned it, they said it was less than 50% of the damage was significant, more than 50%. So they condemned it, and then the newer stream buffers kicked in when it was considered new development and not redevelopment.
Mm-hmm.
But that decision could have been appealed also to it at that time.
It could have, and to my knowledge, it wasn't. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it's clear that this is a development focused proposal. You know, if there was an issue of compensation that, you know, and that's why we've tried to work with landowners that have had that sort of sunk cost, but it's so rare that we get a healthy buffer and we can get some of it back and the owner be compensated. That's just rare.
Yeah, but, you know, I'd also, again, point out that the trees you're looking at are in the floodway. The Zone 1 buffer is that structure.
Yeah, that's clear.
I guess, you know, part of the, going back to our council's recommendation in looking at this lot as it was previously developed, this is not an unimproved property or was not previously. Does that change the precedent on previous cases since it was previously improved?
Well, it wasn't previously approved. The dwelling, I think, predates the ordinance.
Sorry, improved as the site was developed. It was previously developed. It's not a greenfield site.
It typically, and again, the hardship is the primary criteria here, but based on common practice of the committee, typically when we've had a redevelopment proposal, the owner comes in, they move the house out of the buffer as far as they can. They try to reduce impervious surface as much as they can, and then they mitigate. They stay completely out of the Zone 1, they minimize the Zone 2, and we typically approve that. This is occupying all of the Zone 2, and they said that they'd be willing not to mow the Zone 1, but that means they're going to have trees going right up against the back of their house. Somebody's not going to let that continue to happen down the road, is my concern. And it's primarily a development proposal. We're incentivizing development interests in variances is my concern, and they don't have a hardship.
I guess one could argue the hardship is they have done all those things that we just listed on moving it out as much as possible, and we're able to achieve a setback variance to get it as far out of the buffers as reasonably possible. So if I look at it from just this site aspect,
it's one or another. It remains undeveloped, or it gets an attainable housing product on it. Let's not say low income. Let's not say affordable. Let's say attainable. Which
I will say we've consistently turned down Zone 2 developments of this type.
I agree. Those other,
Even with mitigation.
those other options didn't have, for the cases that I've been involved with, did not have an existing property.
With an existing foundation, doesn't it it takes away that new development aspect with the existing foundation, in my opinion, even though legally it probably doesn't. But with the new structure taking up less, I'll bet it's being taxed as a residential lot right now. And my question is, if there were funds to build it when Metro condemned it, why didn't Metro buy it?
Metro still has that option, yeah,
You know,
as well as any other buyer, yeah.
right, so, I mean, the owner had
I doubt Metro would buy because it's not floodable right now. It's not a frequently flooded site, unless they bought it for some kind of greenway purpose.
But the hardship is they had a residential lot that's no longer a residential lot. And classification.
So this 50% rule, sorry, I'm jumping in a lot here today. Usually I say nothing.
Welcome it.
The 50% rule is actually a rule that comes from the Metro Code. And I just want to read that so we're all on the same page as what the 50% rule is. It's not, oh, you had a building so you could put a building back. It's a hard, if you have a casualty loss and it's damaged beyond 50%, you cannot put a building back on this piece of property. And so I just want to read that so we can maybe scope how you guys move forward, okay? No new structure shall be constructed within the floodway, notwithstanding the foregoing. A structure located in the floodway as of the effective date of this ordinance, which this property was, may be maintained and may be repaired in the event of a casualty loss not exceeding 50% of the appraised value of improvements on the property, provided that no such existing structure located in the floodway may be enlarged or expanded beyond its existing height or building footprint. So what that rule has been interpreted to mean over the years is that once you reach that 50% threshold, you cannot rebuild.
That's floodway, not floodplain.
Right. That's the rule that has kind of been bouncing around. Yeah.
Yeah, but it specifically says floodway.
It doesn't speak to buffers.
Yeah.
Michael, can you talk about how we've looked at that in the past, or go ahead?
Mr. Lindsay, the provost of the Floodplain Managers Association.
And the section that Counselor was reading from is Section 170 of our stormwater of the ordinance. And there was a provision in the following section of that that was implemented during the post-2010 flood timeframe, because we had some structures, one in particular on Pennington Bend, where a family that owned a house that was substantially damaged, they demolished the house, but there was a provision put in Section B of that 170 section that said, rebuilding of an existing residential structure in the floodway that has sustained cumulative casualty loss in excess of 50%, provided the rebuilt structure is within the same building footprint as the damaged or destroyed structure and is elevated in accordance with the requirements of the Metro Stormwater Manual. Of course, that's floodway, not floodway buffer. And that may be one of the nuances, Tara, that, the way this was originally written in 2011, maybe didn't anticipate that unless the provision that says you have to do it in accordance with the Stormwater Manual, that kicks in the consideration of buffers and how you address handling buffers. But it only goes toward the original owner, the owner at the time of the casualty loss. It's not a right that goes, because we've had that come up, I think, in several cases in the years since then, where somebody buys a piece of property and says, I want this to apply to my newly purchased property, and then our handling of that has been no. It's really to make whole, if you will, an owner that owns the property that is flooded or is burned down or whatever the source of that. We don't differentiate what that casualty loss cause is. So it wouldn't apply. We've never applied it in the case of a subsequent owner of the property where somebody says, here's an empty piece of property, I want to buy it, and I want the rights to rebuild on the existing footprint. So if that helps any.
That helps, Mr. Lindsay. Yeah, I think that kind of makes the point I was making earlier, and, you know, and I want the applicant to understand, you know, my individual position. This doesn't relate to my sort of authorized regulatory role. It relates to my broader role as a professional. I sit on the state water board. I'm the statutory environmental representative by law on that board, the only one. I can't vote for this from that perspective. I have an environmental focus. I also don't think I can vote for it on our normal variance criteria grounds. I can't defend it from that perspective either. So I don't want you to get the impression that I'm being aggressive just to be aggressive in making these statements consistently over and over again. You know, I won't have any integrity if I vote for it. So as an individual, and that's just my individual position. So.
And I thank you for saying I do respect that. I do want to point out that the current owners that suffered the fire loss still currently own the property.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. Are we ready? Y'all want me to make the motion? Well,
is there anything else? Any other input, Mr. Michael?
Any last thoughts? Any closing remarks? I would say, I think, in looking at, you know, is this development or significant redevelopment? Normally, demo rebuild is considered development.
well, it's the chair's prerogative not to make a motion or to make a motion. Robert's rules discourages chairs from making motions. I can see your pain. Since I have a professional responsibility here, I could make the motion. We could test it by vote. And that way, the person that's most on the record for being against it will be in charge of the motion. So I'm going to move that we deny the variance as presented. And as chair asks for a second. Is there a second on the motion? And you will be complicit if you second the motion. All right, so we don't have a second. So motion fails for lack of a second. All right. Do we have another motion?
Well, I'm just trying to think if we can make a motion with conditions. That's where my mind is right now. I don't know about the rest of the commissioners now, right? Right? Not yet?
Not yet, not yet. Yeah.
Next council meeting. Yeah. I'm wondering if there's a motion with conditions that makes this doable. We've done a very good job of vetting out all of the constraints and maneuvers and community pieces.
I do want you to consider Roger Lindsay's comments. This is new for us if we decide to do it even with conditions.
Clarify for me, though, why is the word floodway? It continues to be in that. It's not necessarily, it's not, why didn't they say anything about the buffers?
Provost Lindsay.
That's a good question, because we were approached by the city council following the 2010 flood, who said, why have we allowed people to build in the floodway to start with? Let's pass an ordinance that prohibits construction in the floodway. And when you look at paragraph A of that section, it just kind of outright just says we're not going to allow any more construction of anything in the floodway, which we all agree is a good philosophy to. And then there were these various provisions of other scenarios that said like, well, what do you do if, in the case the one I read, where a property owner owns a house and it was substantially damaged, and are you going to just tell them they can't rebuild on their property? And the unusual case of the specific one that really kind of drove that one clause was that the lady she and her husband had lived there for years, and as her parents had passed away, they spread the ashes of her parents on the banks of the Cumberland River behind the house. And so they came in and made a strong case to say, you can't not let us rebuild our house if we build it in conformance with the elevation requirements and things like that. And indeed, this change was made, and that's the way they built it. It's quite highly elevated above the adjacent grades on the property. And then there were other things, can we build a soccer field in the floodway, or can we, so it kind of the provisions under which you could build in the floodway kind of began to expand. But there was never really any attempt to come back and say, well, what if it's in the floodway buffer and not just in the floodway? And so I think that the way we would look at that is that there would be a requirement to come back to the committee and say, okay, now we're outside the floodway, but we're in the floodway buffer, and we'll handle it as we would normally handle a request for disturbance of a Zone 2 or a Zone 1 buffer.
Yeah, and that house, the Pennington Bend lots are all in the floodway. Pennington Bend's actually in the Zone 1 buffer. In this case, we're taking a house from the Zone 1, moving it literally as far. I mean, it's 3 feet here and 3 feet there, which that's not even a BZA thing. That's a building code thing. Can't be more than 3 feet from a property line. And moving it, as far out and making it smaller to reduce the impervious and do impervious paver for the parking and a rain garden and a modified French drain for the rooftop. Plus if we removed the mowing and maintenance, now the Zone 1 is back to a complete natural, not natural, but as natural state as it can. Okay, as man can make it.
And I would agree with Mr. Garrigan. I think we could make it work with removing any disturbance of Zone 1 and just prefer to have native lower growing grasses rather than trees up against the house.
How does this impact the property, I'm going to say, to the west? So if this house is all the way up at the corner and somebody wants to build on the lot next door, can we pull, I'm sorry, the screen's off.
And I actually have the survey from the lot to the west, and after talking with it's zoned for one house, and their plans are to build as far left, as far away from our property to avoid their Zone 2, and also their lot has more topographical issues. It's more in the flood zone than our lot is, so they're going to be building as far left. They're going to probably request the 5-foot front setback that we were granted and the 3-foot side on the left side so that they could get as far from the flood zone and the Zone 2 buffer.
And as they testified earlier, they're going to be completely out of the Zone 2. So are they going to come back and ask to build in the Zone 2 if we approve this? They'll have a good precedent for it.
Just as 125 has. I see the two houses in lot 125.
Yes, those went through the BZA, and they are 6 inches. The backside is about 6 inches away from the Zone 2, so they will not need a request to disturb.
Was 131 a vacant lot or a tear down?
It was a tear down back in the 80s and has since become a camp of sorts.
And you can tell 131 and 127, for that matter, have, 10 times the buildable area that this lot has, if a precedent is of concern.
I can identify with the environmental concern, but if I was a neighbor on that street, I'd be totally supportive of cleaning out the mattresses too. I mean,
But do you need to develop it to do that?
I think the argument could also be made the discouragement of future dumping for someone living there. I mean, I know dumpers are very bold. I've seen it right in front of me happen. But I do think there's a discouragement element to that when they see a structure and someone taking care of their property.
Going back to the facts of, the stream determination quality was low. The applicant has done what we always ask them to do, is go get their BZA, go get their other variances first, like BZA in this case. They got that. It's the smallest buildable footprint. It's the last ditch effort on this site. I wonder if there's any other community benefits piece that could go with the motion for this property. We talked about greenways. I don't know. I mean, did greenways comment on this case? Can we review that comment again?
They did. Mr. Logan, would you mind reading that comment?
Yeah. Greenways request that property owner work with Greenways and Open Space Division staff to dedicate a conservation greenway easement over the floodway of Pages Branch plus 25 feet on both sides of the floodway on this parcel.
And I think that's a wonderful idea. And as I pointed out at the beginning, if we could somehow abandon the unimproved section of Sultana that's 50 feet wide that continues, I think that would be a perfect opportunity for like a trailhead or an interesting opportunity if someone did want to do regular mitigation and cleaning of the stream. I think that would be a great opportunity to do that. And I could try to spur that on with the council person and the surrounding neighbors.
So I guess my question is, in order for the provisions for greenways to be documented properly such that it's on plan for the development of this site, do we need to have a preliminary, do they need to come back after meeting with greenways to get that plan specifically approved and deeded to the property in case the build costs don't align with the pro forma and they have to sell the property? We've already granted variance to develop this based on this plan. You with me? And maybe that's a legal question. So if they say, hey, we got our variance for stormwater, we can build with this approved plan set from Metro, and they sell it to another developer, that developer doesn't do anything public benefits wise for greenways like we just talked about.
that's what greenways identified as a deed restriction, the area that they would take if it was.
Right.
I mean, you could put a conservation type easement or something like that. I don't fully understand the layout of the property, right? So that's not my forte. But you could restrict the use.
You could just say that the greenways easement be recorded prior to building permit issuance.
Right, and I mean, and if they sold it and the other developer, wanted to do something else, they would likely have to come back to us anyway, and then we could put that condition back on. I mean, and Greenways would comment again, or if they're not coming back, they're probably not doing anything on the lot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think anything that they would sell, or any situation in which they would sell, they would have to come back to us.
I would agree, and I think they'd also have to go back to the BZA, especially if the time lapsed. I think there's a 1 or 2 year time between a BZA approval and pulling a permit with the approval.
Right, if the time expired between the approval from BZA and the sale of the property, but if it's...
And for what it's worth, I mean, we fully intend on building this and selling this. Those are our intentions. I'll go on the record saying that.
I just want to make sure we're all aware of the fact that if we approve the development and the greenway, we're going to lose most of the buffer to impervious surface. So we'll lose the purpose for the ordinance with all these compromises.
That's where the greenway needs to be a pervious system.
Right, I was just gonna say, like, greenways are like that everywhere. Greenways come in and they don't have to, make any compromise for what they want to do.
I agree totally. But, the
Greenways are gravel in most states in this country.
yeah, they're in this county, they're paved. I did ask Greenways one time why they did that, and they said rollerbladers do not like pervious surfaces.
And I think the request was just a large request. Typically, they request floodway plus 75 feet. But, they request the whole buffer as an easement. So
Yeah,
we don't know exactly where the greenway would go because I don't know if there's a plan for the greenway yet. It could be in the floodway.
Right.
I mean,
They're just trying to give themselves opportunity.
yeah.
okay, so
I was just trying to find a community benefits piece that's specific to this site that is unique as compared to some of our other cases that request a buffer disturbance for building. That's like we've handled other public, like the zoo case, Community pocket park in the backyard. It's a community dump, right?
You watch Parks and Rec, the smallest park. Yes, great tourist.
So that's what I guess, challenging fellow commissioners to think with me on is the ability to have this as a public benefits project to some degree, whether it's the easement for greenways or some educational piece to that greenway where there's a well planted and documented with signage of how this is an important part of our watershed and the management to which this site has been improved as a resource to improving that watershed.
Go out on the limb of the public benefit route again is, because I know when you establish the precedent, that's the real concern is who down at the other end of the street or the other end of the county might say, hey, you did this.
Yeah.
So what if we had the public support of all the neighborhood, the residents in the area, packing this room saying this, or something in writing, this is what we want to see in our neighborhood. I don't think then whoever challenges that would have to duplicate that effort. And it's very unlikely you'd get people to agree in the future. I mean, is that something that would be favorable? I mean,
I like the signage discussion because Metro grading permits have required signs for GIPs that they have a QR code on them too, right, Logan? They, say this is pervious pavement. Take a picture, you learn about it. I mean, it wouldn't be required for a single family, but we could do the pervious paver sign next to the pervious pavers, the bioretention sign next to the rain garden. I don't think there's one for modified French drains, but you wouldn't see those anyway. So, and then, come up with something else for the buffer, instead of just the regular buffer signage, something in addition to add to the post to it.
Yeah. So we just got to be careful. If you zoom back out there, Michael, the lot number 2213 at the bottom right of the page, going back to Chairman's point, this property owner is going to sell at some point, and he's going to have a same BZA setback case. He's got a triangle to build on outside of the buffer. And so we just, thinking through the community benefits piece now, hypothetically speaking, if 2213 came in, how would we handle that as a commission?
2213 looks like it's a 2-acre buildable space compared to this one.
Yeah, certainly.
I mean, not exaggerate, but it's.
Yeah.
It's a triangle, but much larger one.
Ideally, one way to make this work would be to have them purchase another Zone 2 buffer somewhere and restore it close by, next door. That would be an option that wouldn't put you in a precedence problem. That mitigation is your only way around hardship.
Great.
You don't have a hardship if you completely mitigate the loss. So, they could come back with a proposal to restore an equal or slightly larger Zone 2 next door nearby.
There's a lot of zeros on these lots I see. Some of them are Metro buyback properties, I presume, going back to my point about Cumberland River Compact credits within Metro properties, flood buyback zones. I think that's a good option.
So I think the unavoidable reality is that we don't normally approve Zone 2 developments. And we haven't had a lot of mitigation proposals in that regard because we don't really have a mitigation standard, as you already alluded to in your request to edit the minutes. So, one option is to defer and have them go identify a mitigation Zone 2 opportunity and come back. Since there doesn't appear to be a consensus for denial.
What a healthy discussion we've had.
That's right. I mean, these things are about testing reality, and that's our reality right now.
Yeah.
Is that we're stuck. So it doesn't appear you're going to get a vote either way right now, up or down, unless somebody is willing to go on record with a motion to approve it with a Zone 2 mitigation condition that hasn't been presented by the applicant yet.
Yeah, and I understand you guys are trying to close on the property. The guys, they're ready to sell, but everybody who's going to buy this property is going to have to come to us, and we're going to have the same conversation. So we're not going anywhere. This commission
No, and I understand that, and I was thinking community benefit, and I've done this for other developments where my company actually adopts the street and does, for trash and it could be stream cleans of adopting that section of Kingston Street and Sultana Avenue. I think that's something that I would absolutely be willing to do and put on record for public benefit.
Good.
But
And I do like you. Keep going.
But I'm just saying, for the mitigation to offset the hardship, it's got to be a function for function. It can't be picking up litter or picking up trash. It's got to be buffer.
Okay. And as far as removing the existing structure out of the Zone 1 buffer, would that not be a part of the?
I think Mr. Lindsay made clear that's a given.
Okay.
That's not an ad. We're looking for ads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right. So the deferral would be with a condition to work with staff to identify an adjacent property. I see several opportunities here on the screen for a reasonable mitigation effort to further the benefit to this watershed, considering this being an exceptional variance.
And to replace the Zone 2 buffer loss.
Yeah.
Yep. Is that understood?
Could you expand on replacing the Zone 2 buffer loss, like improving a Zone 2 buffer in another?
It would mean improving and securing. It couldn't be developable. So.
Okay. Would that have any part in, if I could spearhead and I know this is a many month process, but abandoning that 50-foot by 140-foot strip of Sultana Avenue that we all know will never be built, and dedicating that to either the Greenway effort or at least.
Restore that section.
Correct, because the road, and maybe perhaps you could pull the Google Maps up just of going down Sultana Avenue, because essentially it just, continues the road 90 degrees. But I mean, that's part of the problem too.
Well, most of it is floodway too. I mean, a lot of it is floodway, at least directly adjacent. There's like the little triangle piece at the bottom that's not, that could potentially be restored.
Sure.
Majority of that wouldn't be developable anyway.
Okay.
All right. So we have a lot of discussion around a deferral. We have some discussion around some alternative ways of mitigating the proposal. What's really important in this kind of case is giving the applicant a lot of clarity so they don't come back with something and waste more of their time, much less our
On
time.
the Sultana easement, okay, yeah. How much footage or how much area would you have to mitigate,
Well, the unimproved right of way is approximately 50 feet
right?
by 140 feet would be the depth of our lot. Of course, it could be accessed from the other side too.
Right. That's your answer right there, is just to establish that as additional zone 2 area.
We would absolutely.
They can't because it's floodway. It's floodway, so they can't touch a lot of, like, the area that's like hatched here is all
Okay.
floodway, and so they can't really touch that, or they can't touch it. They only have like the areas outside of that.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
well, there is a little area.
There definitely is a little bit of area.
Right. So yeah,
But it
they would be the
doesn't,
bottom left corner there.
it doesn't equal what they're developing.
Okay.
That's the challenge.
But that doesn't mean that there's not opportunity elsewhere. I mean, that's not the only opportunity.
Yeah, historically, the burden's on the applicant to figure it out.
Yeah, okay.
Polluter pays, all that good stuff.
This message is very fitting. It's a applicant disaster for you guys. I'm sorry.
Well, when you create an opportunity for discussion, you may find disaster. So,
I know.
the burden's on the applicant. We're here to carry burdens along with you, but not necessarily own them. So we welcome proposals. So do we have a motion?
Well, let's just talk through the 2 points. One, or maybe the 2 or more points. One was recording the easement for greenways as part of their return to this committee, right? Or recording the potential for.
I don't know if like recording the easement before they even get approved is the right move.
Correct. That would be a condition if they came back, that would be a condition that we would require.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Unless that needs to be worded differently.
Logan, you might be able to answer this. If the easement was in the zone 1, the buffer that we couldn't disturb, would that be something that you could just say add on to a new legal description, or at a point it was recorded? Or would that have to be, I mean, I guess I've seen it both ways. Like when they come in and do a new sewer line, they add that easement, and any title going forward has that language and shows.
Yeah.
So I guess the point I was trying to make, it doesn't necessarily have to happen before if.
Yeah, it wouldn't be before this, not necessarily.
And then the second piece would be providing mitigation on adjacent property within the watershed owned by Metro Properties. Is that how we're identifying the opportunity for additional mitigation?
I think the criteria that would be most helpful to the applicant would be just clarity on, is this square foot for square foot? Is this a zone 2 that's been previously denuded of trees that could be restored, or is this a previously developed abandoned site that needs to be restored? You know, it's just got to be an equal kind of trade of some kind. You know, if we just gave them some clarity as simple as this has to be an equal compensation for the loss of this buffer, then they could just go figure out how to make a proposal to make that happen. That, because we're not really supposed to be in the consulting business, we're supposed to be in the criteria business. Yeah. So,
I mean, there is
criteria, let them figure out the details.
there is a tree bank that they could pay into, I guess. I don't know what the qualifications to pay into that are, or theoretically, there's a public stormwater quality improvement fund, which goes toward stormwater water quality projects. Those are typically more for
The
like
official name of that, I'm sorry, I should know it. Public.
stormwater quality project fund, I think. PSQPF. Yeah. I think we were discouraged from saying in lieu of fee. But that's essentially what it is. But those are typically for grading permit sites where they can't meet water quality. So I don't know if that's applicable to this or not.
But I think the point is to just explore
There are
like
other
all the options.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other points that we've discussed that, you know, I guess there's a signage piece that we talked about, educational signage, especially if that Greenway Bridge ever gets built. And there's traffic through that Sultana continuation. Bike lane or something. Okay, anything else?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know that an educational piece does anything for you unless you're educating people about what's ideal. You know, if you're educating people about how to develop a buffer,
Yeah,
that's
agreed.
You know, we're going to.
Okay, we'll worry about that. Okay. Okay, great. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to defer this case with the following conditions such that when the applicant returns, we have a clear case to review related to 2 points. One, there needs to be clarity of easement requirements for greenways, and ideally that would be depicted on the revised plan such that we can review that. 2, the applicant shall provide an equal compensation of mitigation for the Zone 2 disturbance and work with staff to identify a metro site for that, or compensation into the Public Stormwater Quality Fund if that program is applicable to this project.
All right, we have a motion. Is that your complete motion?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Just to be clear, I'm going to be consistent in both.
Good.
Consistent, okay. Just let y'all know, okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we have 3 ayes. All those opposed? I'll have to vote against it. Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. All right, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Point of clarification. You mentioned Metro owned. Those are privately owned lots, all those zeros. If this can be worked out and then secured within an easement, is, you know, on a private property, because it doesn't look like Metro owns any property in the area. Is that sufficient?
I don't know if private property owners would allow you to.
Unless you'd have to compensate them, probably.
Of course.
But that's
That's what I'm saying.
typically the way it's done.
Record a conservation easement on top of a Zone 2 portion.
Which
on
effectively
another
gives Metro unencumbered access to that space anyway. So I think that, I mean, in my opinion, that would be the same thing.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You might want to pick undevelopment triggered sites, because that's typically what triggers the ordinance is its development potential. So if it's if it's open and doesn't have a density of buffer trees and native grasses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just for my clarity, I think what you're looking for is not necessarily like an area of a zone 2 buffer that's the same. You're looking for the same amount of buffer as what they're disturbing.
Same square footage.
Yeah, so it could be in zone 1, it could be in zone 2.
Square foot for square foot.
Yep.
Yep.
That'll make it a little easier.
All right. That help? Okay.
Sorry.
All right, do we need a 5-minute, 10-minute break? I apologize to the next applicant, but this was a big one. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. All right. Everybody ready? Okay. All right. So did you hear your rights of appeal read earlier? Okay. All right. So Mr. Bowman's going to introduce your case. We'll go through the same routine, maybe shorter. And no problem at all. That's great. We appreciate it. All right.
All right, case number 4 on the agenda, case 2021-00014, Thornton Grove Phase 4, 3500 Brick Church Pike. APN is 050000129000. Inspector is Tommy Biggerstaff. Council District 3, Jennifer Gamble. Applicant's request, disturbance of a wetland and wetland buffer. Appellant is Thornton Grove Green LLC, represented by Hunter Dale, Dale & Associates. Comment, stormwater staff, no comment provided. Codes had no comment provided. Planning, no comment provided. And greenways, no comment provided.
All right, so we'll give you 10 minutes. I'll give you a 1-minute sign if you get close, but and then we'll open up the public hearing.
So my name is Hunter Dale from Dale & Associates, address 516 Heather Place. So this project is the final phase of Thornton Grove. This is actually, we're keeping the same variance number. We had actually applied for this variance in October 2021. The variance expired before they started work. So I don't know all the details, but essentially there was an issue with the wetland credits through the ARAP process that caused them to phase this off and pick this last phase up after they achieved that. So they got that ARAP in November 2022. And so we're reapplying for that variance. So what it is it's a freshwater pond, farm pond. It's got a consolidated or a clay bottom. It's flooded all the time. You know, it doesn't offer, from what I see, it doesn't offer much detention or water quality. It's just filled with algae. The banks are just saturated from the ponding water. Vegetation, you know, it's been unmaintained. So, you know, our proposal is to remove the farm pond, come behind the existing stream buffer, plant new vegetation. And then as part of this also, the northern part of the property, there's 60 acres of woodland that's required to be preserved as part of the PUD. So, you know, that'll be right now it's going to be an open space. I don't know as far as conservation easements because there's a TVA easement there, trails in the future. That's a piece that I'm not quite sure how we would need to handle that. But for now, we have it shown as undisturbed area and open space. That's it.
All right. So we'll open up the public hearing now, and we'll come back to you in a minute after that with questions and a little bit of clarification about the exact area of the buffers and wetlands that are being addressed. So while Mr. Hunt looks for all of that, the buffer scale and the wetland specific sites, if we could get a photograph of that, Mr. Hunt. And so we'll open up the public hearing. Is anyone here who wants to speak for or against the current variance proposal? All right, seeing none, do we have any, let's see, how can I recreate this? Letters, emails, banners on the Bell South building?
There is a letter in opposition that's been printed out. I got that this morning. So
from Melody Bryant and Robert Bryant.
Robert Bryant III. Yeah. There were some people here when we first started meeting today. They said they were in opposition. I didn't get their address or name or anything. I don't know if that's, yeah, they're not here anymore. So.
Okay. So all members can have a copy of the letter? Okay. All commissioners, future commissioners. All right, so is that all of our public feedback?
Yeah, that's all we've got.
All right, so we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Hunt, can you show us what specifically is being proposed? And for the applicant, are both of these wetland sites farm ponds?
It's just one farm.
One farm pond, okay, all right. All right. So it was constructed, it's not like a depression or anything like that?
The Wildlife Resources has it listed as a man excavated or wetland inventory map.
Okay, so do you have any letters from the Corps of the state about permits? You do have an ARAP, okay.
I need to record that. Yeah, it's part of the ARAP, they had to purchase the wetland credits. That's an ARAP as well with receipts.
Okay.
So all that information is in the package, I believe.
So are you going to be required to get a Corps permit, or has
nothing has been
U.S.
flagged.
Waters changed that?
Nothing's been flagged on this so far that I'm aware of.
Are we good with that, with the Corps, Mr. Hunt, as far as you know? Okay. All right, so you have a permit, which we expect to make a decision. Did you get any feedback from the Division of Natural Heritage about any kind of specific habitat that might have to be mitigated associated with this?
Not as far as vegetative or wildlife. So, the endangered species, this wasn't flagged for anything like that.
All right. So we typically do approve these types of projects. We're not totally limited to precedents, but we do try to give the regulated community an expectation of what to expect. So by acting consistently. So that's where we are. I guess it's always, I think, important to get the applicant's rebuttal to criticism of a variance proposal. Would you like to speak to why you think there's some opposition to developing a farm pond that classifies as a wetland? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll give you a chance to speak to that. Normally, when someone speaks at the mic, we give you a rebuttal opportunity, so I think that'd be appropriate here as well.
Yeah, so I think the letter, and we're talking specifically about the letter.
Or any opposition that you're aware of in that context.
Yeah, we received the letter, and I'm not sure. It looks like this property owner may be just on Cone Boulevard, somewhere in that area. I think based on the context of the letter, their concern was more about the benefits of wetlands, natural wetlands. So, infiltration practices, wildlife, flood storage, things like that. I think in this case, this pond is constantly flooded. So I don't see much value as far as detention or anything like that, flood protection. The wildlife, I have honestly no idea what's in the pond. It's classified as like 2 meters, I think, depth. Is covered in algae, so I'm sure there's some fish or something in there, but no endangered species. And the vegetation around it is just because it's been unmaintained and it's marshy. So I think, I'm not going to say there's no benefit to the pond there, but I would say because it's a man-made feature, it's more limited than a traditional wetland.
And you have state-approved mitigation.
Yes, sir.
All right. So regarding the detention pond, the dry detention pond, I suspect from past experience of sitting in a Wednesday night church supper, listening to people behind me talk about how they're going to fight a particular development project or whatever, that this probably has as much to do with the development as it does with the wetland. And the extra traffic and the extra runoff. Have you all considered doing any kind of LID type, just to kind of add, you've already mitigated the wetland, but for public sentiment purposes, have you all considered maybe instead of doing a dry pond and creating more developable area, integrating more low impact development throughout your parcels so that you got a usable lot instead of a big dry detention pond, assuming you could get that exchange at that scale with Metro staff? So
originally, when we took this through last time, we had a combination of bioretention and dry pond, and it was in the same footprint. So bioretention was still an option. The issue was the bedrock was pretty shallow, so it wasn't infiltrating very well. And so, as part of the PUD, because we were preserving the 60 acres of woodland, and we basically excluded any steep slopes, any stream buffers. That essentially, because that was preserved, that area is essentially our water quality. So we're basically saying, hey, this area is going to infiltrate grade. It's going to be woodland forever. We're disturbing 11 acres of this total 70 acres. And that was our way of where we wouldn't have to do LID. We can just control peak flows.
Okay, so you're kind of like an international basin, Rutherford County type shallow to bedrock.
Yeah, in this particular basin near the stream. And, we're also including buffer mitigation. So we're basically, the square footage that we're disturbing, we're planting as almost like a stream buffer mitigation, even though it's not a stream buffer. So we're adding that back along the stream buffer.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're not really authorized to require anything other than what you're requesting, but that's just an observation. So. That is Jay's fault. That is not your fault. When Roy wasn't here, we blamed it on Roy, so today we'll blame it on Jay. But sorry, Jay, we love you. Since this is recorded,
And he's watching.
and he's home watching since he's like us, he can't get enough of this.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, it seems straightforward enough.
I don't see anything we can.
I'll make a motion.
All right,
To
we have a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, we have motion passed. Thanks for doing the pre-work. That helps a lot. Okay, so we do have a new item of business, but unfortunately, the person who encouraged us to take this up is going to have to speak.
I'm sure you guys are really disappointed. I think the last couple of meetings, last month, and then even today with the case we had on Kingston, brings up a bigger point and a bigger picture that we all need to start focusing on, I think, as a commission, and then working with staff, hopefully, such that we can provide means for meaningful stormwater management practices through this variance process. One of the existing ways that that's done is through the Cumberland River Compact, or what I just learned about today, the Public Stormwater Quality Fund, which I think we as commissioners should know about those various compensatory mitigation programs that are already in place, such that we can incorporate those tools that already exist within our rulings. So that's like part one, using the existing systems that are in place. Part two is making the systems that are already in place better and in tune with where Nashville is growing, right? The sites are tighter, all that's left are, as we saw today, triangles and floodplains. So it's time to, I think, adapt or, update some of the pieces that are already in place related to compensatory mitigation policy to benefit the watershed in which the site exists, or at least in Davidson County. I know that there's been some conversation with our last meeting with the airport, where I was glad to see Cumberland River Compact and Greenway's representatives in audience. It seems that they are interested in collaborating with Metro Water Services on this effort. And I think we've got some maybe bureaucracy pieces to solve related to, mitigation in perpetuity language that maybe can be amended to allow for, specific requests related to where the mitigation was done, such that any future bridge crossing or any other development can maybe take place there if it goes through the same very process. So two-pronged topic, making sure that we as commissioners know the tools that are in place, and then two, really having a healthy conversation just as we had today on maybe amending some of those policies to keep up with Nashville's growth. That's what I have.
All right. So I think typically this kind of thing can be stated in the form of a commission preference or a direction that for future discussion, to bring in future speakers, to create a subcommittee of commissioners to investigate it. If you want more to do, for free.
Free parking spots.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, free electricity. So for your electric car. So so what do you think would be the best way to approach this?
I think it'd be great to have, as you suggested, Cumberland River Compact come back and tell us what's going on in the market.
Okay, excellent. All right.
That's step one.
All right.
Step two would be, I would love to have an information session on the Public Stormwater Quality Fund and how we as a commission can utilize that as a tool in this variance approval process. There's just that reoccurring theme, especially in this mayoral race of what's in it for Nashvillians. And we are certainly a development-driven community, committee and a community now. And I think there's a real opportunity here to make a real impact through this commission into neighborhoods like we experience today.
So it sounds like you're proposing that the first step, we have the Cumberland River Compact come in and kind of brief us about what they're doing, limitations that they're
And the
experiencing,
challenge that they're
opportunities,
having
and
with working
challenges.
with Metro Parks or Greenways or TDEC, or why we can't have compensatory mitigation in Davidson County
And then-
on Metro properties.
And then number two would be to actually bring up an existing mitigation bank to come in and kind of, and make it maybe part of our post-variance business agenda, have it part of this public hearing.
Yep.
And have the public be educated on public TV about how a mitigation bank works and so forth.
Yes. And then the third piece is, now that I'm thinking about it, the third piece is, I am certain this is not a novel concept in the United States. I'm certain there's an effective program that we could model to better our variance process related to the compensatory or stream bank mitigation process that is being done elsewhere. I would maybe challenge the staff in providing one or two examples of a system that they're aware of, that they like, that maybe we could help adopt.
All right. The people who are paid to do it.
Don't need to add more work, but this is hopefully a fun project that helps kind of better our system in a way.
And we've mitigation credits.
And we've had staff make excellent presentations about other models that we could consider using. And if it's often involved other Metro staff, other than the current ones we already have enslaved, already assigned to us. So, and I bet you the provost of the Floodplain Manager Association has some contacts out there he can tap into. So,
and to build on that, like if you guys have been here forever, if you say, Kabir, we've gone down that road before and it's a dead end road, then let's talk about it. I don't want to.
We want you to say it on the record, Michael. That's what we're looking for.
If I might offer, I think, I don't want to say we've gone down this path before because that would intimate we don't need to think about it. But what you're bringing up has been a constant theme for the last 20 years. As folks have come to the committee, there has been some sentiment because the overriding regulation is at the state level. So at the state level, they're looking at holistic, for lack of a better term, even Steven, or adequate mitigation. So that doesn't necessarily fit with local political boundaries, so to speak. So there is a little bit of disconnect there that some of those permits, which is where the regulations ultimately lie, deal in those terms. So to TDEC, regulating the state of Tennessee, they're not as sensitive as to whether or not a mitigation bank is 1 or 2 or 3 counties over.
Right.
When people come before our committee, going back, like I say, 20 years, there's always been the sentiment it needs to be within Metro, and that's been pushed. And it's normally been pushed through conditions, especially if an entity has the wherewithal to do mitigation on their property, the equal or greater offset. So that is a little bit, and it goes, the sentiments go from here to here in that some people say, I've met what the state requires of me in these areas. Isn't that enough? to, no, you need to do, the local area, the local watershed needs to be that immediacy as far as the benefits. So I do think it would be great, if nothing else, just as a refresher for you to understand from those that are involved what goes on, because it is complicated. There are a lot of market forces. And the reason a lot of these mitigation banks are in rural wetlands, I think, from what I understand, has to do with property values. And obviously in Metro Nashville, that is a pressure that is hard to overcome in some instances. Getting parks here, I think, would be good in that they do have a lot of property. The state, the folks who are over those mitigation arrangements, I won't say they're over the mitigation sites, but those arrangements, that might be something as well. Staff could reach out to them if a future business section when maybe the agenda isn't as long. And then finally, I would speak to the Public Stormwater Quality Fund. We will send you the ordinance on that so you can see. That is generally used by grading permittees where they just logistically cannot do post-construction treatment. And it is something that is limited to just those very extreme cases where they can't do treatment. I think the thought has always been that the committee, through their conditions and through the mitigation required to approve a variance, was handling those. But we'll be happy to send that out to you and then answer any questions as far as how that might be rolled into this. I'm not sure how that would work, but we do. Our goal is for sites to, just like you're wanting on these other sites, to do post-construction water quality treatment locally on those respective parcels. We don't want to start, because then you get into, well, how far away is too far away? So we really do, if at all possible, try to have sites do treatment within their footprint. And I will have to say, our local engineering community has done a fantastic job at solving those riddles. I believe probably could count on two hands the entire history of that fund, the number of sites that have had to do that. And a lot of times those sites are only doing very minor contributions because they're just 1 or 2% away from meeting their RV requirement on a site. And we would rather them do LID versus go all the other way into a TSS fault. But I think this would be a good discussion. We do have new members, and for them to get a recalibration on how some of these things work. And maybe we've reached a point where there are some things we can move forward with at this point.
Yeah. And Mr. Sandhu, I think the way, Commissioner Sandhu, the way you've phrased this is almost kind of a building process. So if you do decide to kind of stick with that third proposal that staff kind of look at options, we can cross that bridge later.
Right.
If you don't want to include it, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But you want to put all of this discussion into the form of a motion?
Yes. I didn't write.
I'll support it. I wrote it down. You're proposing a step-by-step process. First, have a formal on-the-record discussion with Cumberland River Compact about opportunities and barriers. To second, invite existing mitigation banks to come and kind of educate us in the sort of new business portion of our public hearing. And then third, consider asking staff to look at other programs around the nation involving mitigation of buffer.
Can I say so moved to that?
All right. Is that okay, council? All right.
Sure.
All right. So we have a motion that's been stated out loud by me, that's owned by Mr. Sandhu as the proponent of that motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Everyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Sandhu.
Of course.
All right. So, Mr. Bowman, step one, maybe not July since I'm not going to be here, but if August we can have CRC come back, and then maybe in September if we could have the mitigation bank, and then we'll delay execution. I mean, a referral to staff for the third item after we've learned from these first two items. Is that fair, Mr.? All right.
And just a question for legal. If we wanted to have a meeting like outside of this with staff and Mr. Sandu. Could we do that and also invite Cumberland River Compact, or would it just have to be staff?
Yeah, you can have like a work session. I mean, the important part to remember is for a work session, it would be a presentation only. There would be no deliberation or questions specifically related to any case. It would just be more of an informational meeting, providing the information to the committee that they've requested. You would still want to notice it, but it's not as stringent as a,
If it's just one commissioner, I'd still have to notice it. Like if it was just him and not anybody else in that scenario.
oh, you mean like you just want him to meet with these groups?
Yeah, and
Like, let him rock
I'm
and
just
roll.
asking.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we've done that before
Okay.
without
I think
public
we've done
notice.
that before.
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
Yep. All right. All right.
Sure.
Always good to have
Sorry, I
safe
misunderstood.
legal clarity. No, that's
Especially when you say, I can't speak.
I think that's a self-imposed.
Deliberate at a work session is what I was trying to say. You can speak, you just can't speak.
For the record, I have not heard any complaints about Mr. Sandu at all speaking. That's right. On the record or off the record.
Self-awareness. All right.
It's always good to test self-awareness. All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, motion made. And do we have a second? All right. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.